The Correctional Supervision and Parole Board in the parole application of murder convict Oscar Pistorius is about to brief the media following Pistorius' parole hearing. Let's cross live to that.
Have you had a chance to speak to June at all on the back of the outcome? If you have, what are her feelings?
No, I have not spoken with June. I believe Tanya is trying to get hold of her, but I'm not sure if that communication has taken place yet. But I know Tanya is trying to get hold of her. Yeah.
Are you Rob?
Yes.
Dennis from SABC.
Yes, Dennis.
Do you believe this was the right decision?
Oh, Dennis, Look, I think that's what is really important in these parole processes, that equal consideration is given to the input from the offender and the input from victims. And so if I read the conditions that are applied to his parole, I have to believe that the victim statement that was read out by Advocate Tiot was definitely taken into consideration, because you heard June's reservations in there. So it's not for me to comment on whether it's right or wrong, but I'm of the opinion that the parole board certainly listened to the input from the victim impact statements. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Any other questions? Well, I really just want to thank you very much for giving us the bandwidth, and giving in particular June the bandwidth, and giving the bandwidth to victims, because I think that tide has to change. Victims have to start being listened to, and the devastation that is left behind by the offenders taken into consideration when parole is dealt with. So I believe that you have the opportunity to put that message out there, and thank you for your participation. You have one more question? Again, that's such a difficult question for me. I'm not, it's such a personal issue. I think what is important probably is that in terms of what the legislation requires, that's what's important. My mouth is dry. We can't have, we want to live in a country where there are rules and regulations. And we want to live in a country where those rules and regulations are applied evenly across the board without fear or favour. And if those are the rules and Pistorius has met the requirements, then so be it. My personal view on that is not important.
As a friend of June's,
Again, I can't see into June's mind, but I think that you heard when I read out the victim statement that I believe her view being that if the parole board are of the opinion that he's met the criteria for release on parole, then I believe June will be okay with it. But I can't read inside her mind. I can only interpret what she said.
So, as somebody who campaigns against gender violence, Oscar Pistorius has never accepted that he deliberately killed previous inmates.
Yes.
How's that go down with you, and how will that look for South Africa?
I think that my personal opinion is that part of that road to rehabilitation is acknowledging what you've done and being accountable for what you've done, and being man enough or person enough to say, yeah, I did it, and all the consequences that go with it. Not just lip service, because lip service is easy. It's easy to say sorry when I've been caught. Your actions have to be completed with deeds in the way you conduct your life. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but that's my feeling. And I think it's pertinent to take into consideration the conditions that have been given to Pistorius. I think that's quite important. Remember, he's not a lifer. He did not get a life sentence. The rules for life sentences are very different. But I'm just the dad. I'm not the lawyer.
some people might say that the sentence is actually quite lenient in the first place, and then to serve 6.5 years for the murder of a woman, a defensive woman, is not, acceptable.
But I go back to my point. If that's what the law says, and if those are the rules, then we need to question the rules. We can't question those who interpret the rules and make decisions on those rules, because I think that leads to chaos and mayhem. I think as a law-abiding country, and I believe the majority of us want to be law-abiding people, and if those rules aren't adequate or too lenient, then that's where that issue should be addressed. Okay, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for your interest.
What will happen from now until the month of January 2024 will be what we call a pre-release program. That's where an inmate is prepared for life outside of a correctional facility. As some of you may expect that a person, not everyone will find it easy to adjust. So psychologically, you ought to prepare that inmate that not everyone will welcome you. Yes, others will open their arms to you, how to react when such things are happening, and also when they find going hard, how to handle such matters, and also how they ought to relate with the monitoring officials, because the reason for monitoring is not to punish inmates, but is to assist them in their social reintegration efforts. So for now, I think I'll want to end there, except to say, just like all other parolees, Mr. Pistorius will be monitored by our officials based within the system of community corrections, and until that will happen until such time that his sentence expires, because we always make it a point that parole placement does not mean the end of a sentence, but it merely says that you will complete your sentence outside of a correctional facility, which is part and parcel of rehabilitation efforts. I thank you, colleagues. Unless there are a few questions, I'm willing to take that.
Can I ask, when you say monitor, do you mean he's going to have an ankle bracelet?
Okay.
Or what's the monitoring? What's the
Okay.
nature of the monitoring?
Okay.
And then second of all, Mr. Matthews just gave us a list of the alleged parole conditions. Are you able to confirm that those are in fact the conditions?
Okay, thank you. In South Africa, we do not utilize the bracelets that you'll find in other countries, but we have officials in our system of community corrections. It's a branch, it's located across the country. Those officials' responsibility is to monitor parolees and probationers. So what will happen is that Mr. Pistorius will be allocated a monitoring official. So this is the official that will work with him until his sentence expires. If there are changes, they will engage. Why is it important to have a monitoring official? When a parolee is out there, there are many things happening in his life. It could be the change of an address, securing employment, or starting a business. All those things do matter, because we have to be informed about each and every activity, or in case a parolee is moving from one province to another province, even if it's not long term, we have to then alert our side that be on the lookout to have a parolee coming to that particular site. So it's very important that a parolee has that relationship with the monitoring official, and they then work out a schedule in terms of the visits at home, coming to our offices, unannounced visits. But I want to repeat, the intention is not to make life difficult for a parolee, but is to assist that person that, one, is complying with those parole conditions, two, that an inmate is able to reintegrate successfully. In terms of the parole conditions, I will opt not to detail myself on those. I'm yet to see them, but the conditions, what's important with them, they are there to assist an inmate to adjust, and also to address if there are still other areas that require attention. Thanks.
When you say correctional supervision, is he going to be under correctional supervision, and is that house arrest?
Okay, the parole conditions will detail when a parolee is expected to be home, when a parolee is expected perhaps to be out there either seeking employment or engaged in other businesses, and when a parolee is expected to report in our offices of community corrections, or when our officials will be visiting a parolee. So I often hear about house arrest, but it's more about when are you expected to be home, what type of things are you allowed to consume and not to consume.
Like alcohol?
Alcohol, definitely you're not allowed to consume alcohol, drugs and other things, but those parole conditions detail everything, and a parolee has a right to engage with the monitoring official in terms of if there's particular conditions that may feel that are constraining them perhaps from exploring other means, and they have to find ways to resolve such. Is there another question, colleagues? I think we're done. Okay, there's one more.
Why do you think the measures will be enough to keep other women safe?
I think it's a duty for every citizen, whether South African, foreign national, whoever is within our borders, respect the laws of the country. Whether it's a woman, it's a man, whoever, no one has a right to take a life. And when we've seen things going out of control where women and children are the ones, at the receiving end when you compare to other genders, I think as society we have to stand up against such. So when courts issue these sentences, it's in a way of deterrent to say even to others, please, this is not allowed, don't find yourself, in such. Hence, you may have noticed in South Africa, courts have been issuing quite lengthy sentences in a way of, trying to prevent people from engaging in unlawful activities. But our duty as correctional services is to make it a point that sentences issued by courts are respected in a way that people do serve those sentences in full. And that is what we do. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you very much.
Was briefing the media very briefly there on murderer Oscar Pistorius' parole conditions, saying they are yet to be seen, but they are there to assist an inmate not to make their life difficult, reintegrate into society, no alcohol or drugs to be consumed. He will be monitored and details of that parole will emerge.